Welcome. This is the September ZAPP webinar for new administrators. Today we're going to be going over a bunch of tips and tricks for you guys. Essentially, the first half of this is going to be going over like what you need to do to publish your event, how to set things up, the event editor button, what happens there, how some things coexist. In the second half of this, we will be touching on coupons, how to make coupons, what do statuses mean, what can artists do, what they can't do, what they can purchase. I will go through all that stuff, and then I think I'm going to wrap it up with just how to get in touch with us if you have questions, comments, concerns, or anything like that on your end. If you are a new admin, you did probably receive a login email with something saying ZAPP New Administrative Credentials and Resources, and there's a login button. So you go to admin.zapplication.org to log into ZAPP. Once you're logged in, you'll see this awesome event administration page. This is probably where you'll be doing 90% of the work throughout the lifetime of your event for the year. So yeah. If you haven't published your event yet, so you've been given a new template or essentially you've renewed for 2023 and you've been given a skeleton event to fill out, what you'll want to do is click on the event editor button here. And then you will see 4 tabs at the top of the page. The first one is the event information tab, jury details tab, application editor tab, and the product editor tab. So on this demo event, we do have the gallery add-on feature activated. I will not be discussing this one on this webinar. If you have any questions about that, you can go to the Help Center and there is an add-ons button. You can click that to read more, get more information about how that works in the gallery and the cost and things like that. So for the first tab, the event information tab, you will be given a few fields to fill out. It's pretty cookie cutter stuff, but there are a few things that people kind of skip over when they're filling this out. The first and foremost, the one is the logo. There are some requirements below the logo when you are asked to upload it. It needs to be no longer than 300 pixels on the longest edge and also a JPG format image. Anything else, if it's too big, you can always go down to the bottom of the page and just use this preview function here to ensure that it looks okay on the live front part of ZAPP. If it's too big, you'll know. Things will be pushed around, buttons will be floating off the side of the page, and yeah, you will have to resize that image. If you have questions about how to resize an image, we do have some options in the Help Center. I'll go over that as well at the end. You also have the ability to upload a sitemap. This is a nice little feature. It's not interactive, it's just an image. Keep in mind, just like on the logo, we do have some requirements for this. A PDF or a JPG format as well works. But yeah, this sitemap will populate on the front end of the event. It's just, it could be a great little reference for your artists when they are applying the show, or maybe they are halfway through the application process, maybe made past the jury process, just kind of want to see what the layout of the event looks like. You can provide that for them. Another self-explanatory one, you have the event name. Pretty simple. We always just ask to keep the year on the end of the event name. It helps for artists finding you guys when they're searching through the ZAPP database for an event. If every event had the year first, then it would be really difficult to find something. So we always ask to throw the year on the end, or like 48th annual, put that at the end of your event. The event email, this one's relatively cookie cutter as well, but something to not forget, this is going to be the main point of contact that your artists will have when they are looking to get in touch with you guys about questions for the event. So I always recommend to administrators, like if you are the main point of contact, throw your email in there. If you guys have a generalized inbox that you use at your organization, throw that there. Like I have seen someone make the mistake of putting their personal email address there. They didn't want to have all the questions going that direction, and unfortunately, like that happened. So be mindful of that. The event phone number. The event phone number is, we actually ask that you guys fill this out, but it is not required to display it. So what that means when you are displaying a phone number, that is, most people probably would prefer to talk to somebody over the phone. So that means that they would probably call that number. So you do not have to display it. You can uncheck that box, but we do still ask that you guys at least fill out that field with a good phone number for the event. After you have published your event, which we'll go over that process shortly, you will eventually see the event public URL here populate on this tab, the event information tab. This URL, you can just copy and paste it into your browser. You can share it on your social medias, etc. You can link it on your website, however you guys want to do that. But that is going to be where artists will be able to find you on ZAPP. One other thing to note on this as well is the website URL will embed in the logo. So when you're on the front page of your event, this image will now be a clickable link. And so if you wanted to put a website in, if you have an external website for your event, you can plug that in here. That does embed into the logo here itself. Artists can click that. It'll take them off of ZAPP to wherever you would like them to go by clicking the image at the top of the event. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram URLs, those are relatively self-explanatory. If you have some social media links, you want to get that exposure, you can throw those in here. And they will also populate on the front of your event right here where it says event pages. They're clickable. They're little links just like the logos that correspond. The mailing address. So this one is not to be confused with the event location. If the event is in a different place than where you guys are planning on receiving maybe some mail correspondence, if you are opting for artists to use checks during their payment or checkout process, then the mailing address matters. I've seen a few events throw like attention, ZAPPlication right at the bottom to or make checkout to this person at this address. So just to give them some ideas. So what's nice is when an artist is checking out, they do opt to pay via check. They actually will be able to see that when they click that option, and they can make the checkout and send it to you guys without having any questions. Event location, that is up to you folks to fill that information out. You will most people at this point in time when they're on ZAPP know where their event is going to be located, and so you just want to fill that out according. So event location here, you can put a street address, etc. This is a demo event, so we don't really have like a good address to throw down here, but it just kind of reiterates that yes, this is in Breckenridge in this state, etc. Which region? The region will update depending on which state you click, and then also a time zone. The event type. So we have a few options here. If you just received like a new event from us as an actual new administrator, or you're new to an organization and have renewed, most of the time they will come listed as unspecified. We give you guys the option to fix that if you need to. You can change it to whatever you would like on this list: indoor, outdoor, virtual, etc. So this is a relatively new feature at ZAPP. What types of applications do you accept for your event? So at this one, it says both. We have the option for artists now and non-artist vendors. Non-artist vendors are going to be your sponsors. They can be food trucks, etc. Whatever you guys essentially want to identify that as. So if you want to take both now on ZAPP, you can. And then if you do select both, you will see a secondary question populate below. What types of applicants need to submit images? So I always joke with folks and say, if you don't want to have pictures of hot dogs and hamburgers from your food truck vendors like on the application, just select artist. If you want to have everybody submit images and you want to see those food images, or maybe your sponsorship, what their booth's going to be looking like, etc., you can select all there, and they will be required as well to submit those images. Moving down here, we have this is essentially, these next few fields are the timeline of your event, right? So this is the date you intend to publish and start accepting applications. This is the last day that you want to, or you are accepting applications. The jury start normally coexists like right after the application deadline. Some people will have their jury overlap. They do kind of jury as they go. We at ZAPP call that a rolling jury. That is also another way to set that up as well. But in this timeline here on this event, we can see that the dates are off, but the jury would normally start after the application deadline here. The jury end date is the last day of the jury, and then the notification date. We get a lot of questions about this date. This here is essentially the date you intend to communicate the results of your jury process with your artists. You do not have to display this, just like the phone number we discussed earlier. This is not something you need to display. This does give you a little bit of wiggle room, maybe if your jury is a relatively solidified 3-5 day jury process, and people are anticipating. If you don't display that date, gives you a little wiggle room to maybe fix any errors on your end that you can and notify the artists afterwards. Accept invitation and purchase deadline. This is another one that's a pretty big miss later on down the road. This is the last day an artist will be able to accept an invitation to your show, and that will make more sense as this training goes along. And also the last day they can purchase anything beyond the application fee or the jury fee, like a booth space, tents, etc., all that stuff. So this is the last call for any kind of bigger purchases to attend the event. And then finally, the event start date and the event end date. If it's the same day, if the event's only a single day event, you can throw that same date in both of these fields here. Is the event juried? This is a great question. Some people host events on ZAPP that do not have a jury process. You can change that to no, and actually this will update the next tab we go to, depending on whether your event is juried or not. So the next section down here, this one is where things can start to get a little long-winded, right? If you, the first one is the event summary. That means basically 1,500 characters or less. We want you to describe your event in a relatively like an elevator pitch. What are you guys about? How long have you been around? Feel free to throw as much in there as you want, up to 1,500 characters. The general information section, as you can see, like on this demo event, a lot of people throw the important dates up here, communication timelines, things like that, maybe some weather related situations and how you guys handle that stuff. I've seen refund information thrown up here, etc. So you can put whatever you would like. Just to keep in mind, these fields are required to be filled out in order for you guys to publish your event in full, all 5 of them. But yeah, so you can span out all this information. But the general information section just populates on the front of your event right here. So you can throw down whatever you'd like here, including medium categories, any frequently asked questions, maybe things like that, to maybe help answer questions or vet phone calls or emails beforehand. Rules and regulations. This is a big one. All new administrators I always talk to in trainings about like what to throw down in the rules and regulations section. Essentially, it is completely up to you guys and how you want to handle that. One of my biggest pieces of advice for new administrators is to include refund information. If you don't do refunds, that's totally cool. Include it. If you do refunds, that's great as well. If you do refunds up to a specific date, include that. In any way, shape, or form, we just ask that you guys be transparent about the refund process in the rules and regulations section. And there's tons of reasons for that, but the main one is essentially to prevent any kind of confusion. During the lifetime of your application, artists maybe want to execute chargebacks, through their account if they feel like they deserve a refund. So all this stuff matters, and this helps protect you guys from situations like that arising. Booth information, another great one to have that transparency. So some of the things that I've seen over the year or so that I've been with ZAPP is a lot of times events will say a 10 by 10 booth, but there's no information on what is included with that booth. Is it just the space? Is the tent included? And are they getting pro walls? Or is there going to be electricity with their purchase? Is that going to be a separate purchase? So we ask for you guys to lay this stuff out as cut and dry. What's included? Here's what you get for $375. And you lay it out just like that. So that way there is no confusion when an artist makes a purchase like that. They know what they're getting. And then finally, the legal agreement. This one is completely up to you guys on your end on how you want to run this. One of my small pieces of advice is always to reference the rules and regulations in your legal agreement. The reason this is even a thing is because the artists essentially have to agree to the legal agreement in order to even access starting the application to you guys' event. So you can see where that goes. Essentially, it's a signature. If anything happens, it covers you guys in a legal standpoint. So always, always, always try to reference the rules and regulations or the booth information, refunds, things like that in your legal agreement. Down at the bottom, allowing artists to archive. This is a great little setting. After your event has passed, essentially ZAPP does a switch in the background and nothing will change. Do I have examples of legal agreements to reference? No, we do not. I could, your best piece of advice, what I normally tell folks is if you haven't already, another good thing for you is totally free and it's really quick. Make an artist account through ZAPPlication.org and go check out some other events legal agreements. It gets a little washy. We can't really give the advice on a legal agreement, that's up to you guys as the event and what you want to include there, but you totally can go take a look around at other events and see how that goes on how they're doing it. Yeah, if you haven't made an artist account, go do that. It's even if you never use it, make it because you can see what it looks like from an artist's perspective. I've seen administrators give themselves a coupon and go through the application process to practice the whole thing through to make sure they're getting correspondence, etc. It's a great little tool to have. Allowing artists to archive, though, back to that. Essentially, don't worry about this setting. That's the best way I can put it. If you don't worry about allowing artists to archive, we normally deal with that. The system, after your event has passed, will automatically enable that. It's just like an administrator, when we archive an old event, it throws it down into another drop-down menu. You still have access to it. You just can't make any changes, etc. It's not live anymore. Same thing happens on the artist side of things. If you do turn this on during the time that your event is going on, one of the things that can happen is an artist can accidentally archive their application, and there is not a way for them to unarchive it. They have to reach out to us, and we have to unarchive the application for them. And there is a process behind that. So it's best just to leave that to disabled. And we'll worry about that for you. Showing booth assignments to artists. So this will make a little bit more sense later on during this training. But essentially what's going to happen is at one point you will have the option to assign booth numbers on a event management table. And when you're ready to display those for the artists, you can come in here and hit this as active. Once that's activated on their application, the artist will see their booth number. And if you have the sitemap uploaded like above, then they can correspond, see where they're located in the event. Same exact idea with waitlist numbers to artists. Same thing. You can assign those waitlist numbers. If you want to enable that, it lets your artists know what number in line they are when they're on the waitlist. And then finally, display slideshow images. This is not to be confused with the jury process. Jury process is a completely other training. It takes about another hour or so to go over that. This is just essentially, how do you want to see the images on your artist applications? If you open up the slideshow feature, which we'll touch on that here shortly, do you want to see 5 images? So you want to see the whole body of work? And then you can click them and make them bigger, click the images and make them bigger, or do you want to see one image at a time, kind of like a PowerPoint or a slideshow, and you go through those with right or left arrows. And so you have 2 options here, thumbnails or large image. One thing else while I'm touching on this page is ZAPP has a timeout feature. Maybe some people have been bitten by that. Some people may have not. Unfortunately, after 25 minutes, a little window will pop up on your screen and it will say you have 5 minutes left remaining in your session. If you click OK, it resets the timer. But if some people get up, like let's say you're in the middle of typing the general information here, filling all this out, you're 2,000 words deep, you get up to go get a cup of coffee, etc., or walk away from your computer, and you forget to come back, and it logs you out, that information is not safe. And it's tough. We cannot recover that information for you. So some of the best pieces of advice that I have is work external. Type it up someplace else. Microsoft Word is a big one. We have this paste from Word feature here, which is available. Essentially helps translate the HTML coding from Word to this little section here, and it works great. So if you're typing up something that's really long-winded, do it externally, log into your ZAPP account, upload it. Otherwise, I don't want you guys to get logged out halfway through your progress. Yes, there is a save feature within ZAPP. So down here at the bottom of every page, you'll either say update or save. If you click this, you're back in the game, you're good. So what constitutes as activity on ZAPP is the save button. Typing does not. Changing fields like this does not, but changing tabs does. So activity keeps that timer constantly going. So you don't have to worry about that. So as long as you're working, but if you get lost in, like I said, in one of these big boxes typing on here, Just make sure you save every 10, 15 minutes and you'll have no problems if you only want to work in ZAPP. But some people want to work externally, and so that's why we implemented that Microsoft Paste from Word option. Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one. I don't want you guys to lose your progress and get logged out. It's happened to me, tons. So yeah, we'll save just to show. Once you save, it'll always bring you to the top of the page. You'll say data successfully updated. If you haven't published your event yet, what it'll say, there'll be a big red bar above here. It says, go to the jury details tab and fill out the required sections. So that's exactly what we're gonna do, just like as if we were filling this out. You click the jury details tab. This page here, just to show you where this goes, is down at the bottom. So this is the front page of your event. Down at the bottom here, this is where your jury details reside. This is great information for artists when they're applying. It helps them prepare their application. It helps them, in many, many ways. So with that being said, ZAPP has required you guys, in order to publish your event, there are 4 questions on this page that matter. And I will go through those first. The average number of applications you receive each year. So a lot of folks sometimes will say, we're not exactly sure. We don't have that data. Just ballpark it. What are you looking to receive? Just a number needs to be in there. You can't put N/A, et cetera. No, like not applicable. It just ballpark a number. Enter the average number of artists selected from the jury to participate in the event. So these are basically who's going to make it to the jury process, who's coming, how many folks show up to you guys' event each year. And then finally, the average number of exempt from jury artists who are entitled or invited to participate in the event. So this section here, exempt from jury can be relatively confusing. The best way to put it, award winners. You have any award winners from last year that you guys say, oh, they are automatically in our show next year? Or however you have anybody that's automatically in your show? Are they exempt from the jury process? If you do, how many? Throw that number there. And then finally, the 4th required question is selecting the method in which images are viewed at the jury. So we have a few options. We've got our Jury Buddy process. If you have questions about Jury Buddy, you can email us and we can talk. That's essentially we will ship you a bunch of projection systems and laptops, and you have an in-person jury process, and you project your images on the wall. There's not too many events that do that anymore, but the ones that do really love that process. And then we have your own projection system, high definition TV, and then the biggest, most common is computer monitor. ZAPP we basically have set it up to where remote jurying is a thing. You can jury from your house. You can create jury accounts. They can log in on their laptop at home, etc., and go through vet applications and score them and submit those scores. The other questions on this page are not as precedent, but they are great if you know the answers. They're great to be filled out. How are returning artists selected? If you don't have one of the answers that are set here, we also have included an other option and a comments box to help explain better. So in which applications are reviewed in a medium category, right? So do we look at the app ID, or do we look at application received, etc.? What kind of scoring do we do? 1 through 7, 1 through 5, yes, no, maybe, 1 through 10. We can even add a comment there if you want to talk about scoring. Maybe it's 1 through 7, no 4s, etc. So this is a great thing to go through. My advice to you guys, if you know the answer, fill it out. If, beyond the required questions. If you don't stress over it. You can move on. Just make sure that those 4 that we touched on are filled out when you're ready to publish your event. That's the Jury Details tab. So we're going to move over to the Application Editor tab now. So here is essentially where you're going to be building that application that the artist will fill out. It's kind of it's a lot like a Google form. If you've ever done that before. If you haven't, it's essentially typing up, just like back in the day, those paper applications. You're going to be making the questions and allowing these folks to write the answers down. For first place you'll have is medium categories. So this event has been fleshed out. There is a lot of medium categories listed here. You will not see that on a new event. So in order to add a category, you come down here, type in what you'd like, click the blue Add Category button, and it will populate above on the list. Couple things to note here. Tim, can we delete a medium category after an application has applied under that medium category? That is a big no. No, they are already attached there. There is no way to delete it. So a perfect example here is ceramics, right? I can't remove that. We have applications under ceramics on this event. I cannot click the delete button. It's there indefinitely. But, however, you can update the name. So you can change stuff. So, for instance, in the world of jewelry, they're everywhere at all events, and the applications can come in mass. If you feel like you are full on a specific medium category, we've got enough people. You can always come in and throw full on the medium category itself, and that will help deter anybody from paying that application fee and going through the process. They may see that and say, oh, it looks like they're full with jewelry. I guess I'm not going to apply this year. Moving down the page, so that's your medium category stuff, is the application custom questions section. So this is where things can get extremely complicated if you want them. It's complicated in a good way. One thing to note before we dive into like questions, etc., because you guys may have some questions here, is essentially contact information. So when an artist creates an account, if you create an artist account, you'll see this. It basically asks you, name, email, phone number, etc. All that stuff comes automatically when an artist submits an application. So you don't need to ask, what's your name? What is your email address, etc. on your application. That comes automatic. A lot of events use this place to collect demographics. They use this to essentially maybe look for marketing. How did you hear about us? Maybe collect some files that artists have, maybe or from the like food trucks, things like that. So health department certifications, tax identifier numbers, things like that. You can collect all this stuff. So this is where you want to get like the meat potatoes. So in short, contact information is already a given when someone applies. Don't worry about that stuff. Okay, so let's talk about what this looks like. First and foremost, description of materials and technique. I can't delete it. Why? The artist reached out to us. They were tired of having to type out a description of materials technique every time they applied to a show. So we basically came up with an idea to allow them to save those description materials and techniques on their end, and they can automatically like select which one they want to use for per application. And so that's just the given. You do have the ability to edit that and change the character limit up to 1,000 or down to 100 if you need to. So they will still have to follow some of the guidelines you guys set forth there. So how do we make a question? Perfect. Build new question here. You click this blue button. You have a few types. You have a text type. That's just exactly like what you would think. Think about what is the response, right? So we're thinking about building a question structure. Do I want them to be able to type in a text box to respond to our question? That's what the text is. Single select, like a yes or no. Multiple select, like a select all that apply. Drop down list, which looks basically exactly what I'm using here and you guys are seeing. File upload, that's essentially different from the image upload that we're going to be touching on soon. This is where you can collect that tax information, health department certifications, or health department scores, things like that. You can collect that stuff here under the file upload option. And then my favorite is the informational only, because it's actually not a question, it's an announcement or a statement. So if you are a student artist, please reach out to us at timisawesome@gmail.com. We have a coupon code for you. Or you can input an informational only question at any time, and essentially you could, with the full jewelry that we were talking about in the medium categories, you could throw an informational only saying that we are no longer accepting jewelry applicants at this time, or something like that, just to help once again create another lane of defense from getting those extra applications and hopefully preventing some refunds from happening if that's something that you guys do. So, cool thing is, let's say I want to make a single select question. First and foremost, you'll select single select, and then you have a title. This is internal, so you can name the question, helps you kind of find it, on the list here behind. Do you want to make this question a requirement for artists to answer? Most folks say, yeah. If you're looking for marketing stuff, yeah, we want to know that stuff. So we're going to make this required. You type in your question here in the body, and then you add options for answers here. So what does this look like fleshed out? Let me just switch there. So for instance, artist, so this is our internal question, internal title here. We go to edit. We've set this as a required question. Are you applying as an artist or a non-artist vendor? There are my options, so artist, non-artist vendor. And then we also included a help text, which is exactly like if I click this little circle here down at the bottom under enable conditional logic, this kind of explains more. So if it's a hard question, or maybe you feel like, somebody might need me to kind of explain this more, then you can always throw a help text. So what does this look like? How do we test this stuff? Great question. If you go down to the bottom here, we have a preview option. We have preview artist and we have a preview vendor application. So we'll click the preview artist application. How does this work? This is a great way to test this section. So there's your medium categories. There's that insert save statement option, and there is that description of materials and technique. And then here we have all of our questions where you can click bubbles and just test to make sure some of these work. Now, here's where things can get complicated. ZAPP has essentially added what's called conditional logic to your questions. So you can essentially make it to where if an artist is applying to this, then they will see specific questions that they need to answer. If they select non-artist vendor, see how the questions change. So you can set this up to where you basically put a split in the road and ask specific people specific questions. And if someone doesn't need to see that question, it's not relevant to them, then you can hide that away. So how do you set that up? At the top of the page, let's say we're back on this artist or non-artist vendor question. Most people will see this enable conditional logic feature here at the bottom. Don't do it on the primary question. We consider this as your primary question. It's going to be enabled on your secondary questions. So what do you want to show up if somebody selects non-artist vendor? So let me close this out here. And then here is our first non-artist vendor delineation question, right? So when we built this, we wanted this only to show up after that initial question has been asked and someone said that they are a non-artist vendor. And you create your question just like you would normally, blah, 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 fill out your options. Down at the bottom, yes, we are going to enable conditional logic on this question. And this means show this question if any of the following match. If our internal titled artist or non-artist vendor question is non-artist vendor, you could change that to artist if you would like, etc. So it pulls information from that primary question and will essentially enable this question if they select whatever you put here. Tons and tons and tons of ideas, things you can use this for. I have heard people talking about using it for different languages on their applications, or asking questions for someone who's a student, right? Or things like that. So you can kind of just create a side avenue on your application that someone would need to answer if they answer a specific question as yes or no, etc. So after that's said and done, the other cool thing you can do is you can change the question order here. So the question order, it matters, right? Like we want to make sure that this stuff is in uniform. Maybe it's going to be in like a chronological order question-wise. But in order to do that, you just need to find something on the drop-down menu. So I want to replace this with number 20. So I will put that as number 20 and put this as number 1 and then hit update question order. And those two would swap. So you can change the order of your questions by doing that. At the bottom down here, we have media sample settings. This is where you're going to be setting up the image requirements on your application. So if we go to the application here itself, this is the artists. So remember, back on the event information tab, we want artists submitting images. We don't want non-artist vendors submitting images. This is where they will essentially pull from their list of images that they have uploaded on their profile, and they will include those in the selected samples to submit section. The orange star is a boost shot. They will have to delegate that as a boost shot before they even start the application. And so as we saw there, we have 4 images are required. The boost shot is active, and then we have that displayed 5 images per row. Just like that. 4 images required, active boost shot, 5 in a row. You can add up to 12 images that are not thought of as a boost shot, And then you also can have boost shot active or disabled if you'd like. And you can change how you want that displayed. So there is some customization there. Now, the difference is there's your vendor application. Looks the same, right? There's that conditional logic enabled on that application, but down at the bottom, there is no option to submit images. So a lot of people get confused here and wonder, well, how are we differentiating an artist versus a non-artist vendor application? That doesn't happen on your end of things. When a person creates an account on ZAPP, they are asked a question, is this a non-artist vendor account or an artist account? And at that point, that will essentially kind of constitute what types of applications they could submit to events at that point. So for instance, right, on this one, this non-artist or artist vendor question is not going to differentiate what the application, like what type of app this is being submitted. That doesn't make it that's more for questions you're asking them. This has already been like decided beforehand, whether they're an artist or non-artist vendor. We will save the page here. Once again, that data is successfully updated section here will open up. And then we will touch on the product editor. The product editor is pretty easy. It's a spreadsheet essentially on ZAPP. This is where you're listing out your products for sale, right? What are you selling to your artists? Boots, t-shirts, hats, pins. I've seen meal tickets. I've seen all types of things sold on here. So how do we add these? Down at the bottom, you got a new product. Give yourself a dollar amount. How many of these are we selling? Add a description. We always ask to keep it relatively short in the description. If it's too long, the system will tell you that it's too long when you go to save it, and you'll need to shorten that down. Accepted payments. Are we taking all? Are we taking just credit card and PayPal? Or are we going to be accepting checks for this? And then what type of product is this? Relatively corresponds to what you're selling. The biggest thing to note here is if you're selling a booth, make sure it is a booth type product. And this will make more sense here in just a moment when we talk about statuses. But essentially, when someone purchases a booth product, their application will automatically move from accepted to confirmed. Otherwise, if it's not listed as a booth product, but you guys are wanting them to go to the confirmed status, you'll have to manually do that. At the top of the page, you see the jury fee. That is already created for you. We've filled that out for you. You can update the price. You also can view and update fees here. So if you want to give someone a pat on the back and a little bit of a discount for applying early, you can turn that early bird fee on, set the cost. So this is not plus the actual fee. This is going to be what the fee will be during these dates. Same thing with the late fee. So essentially through January 1st through February 28th, this application was $5. Then it went to 10. And then after March 1st through September 30th, it was $15. So there was a bit of a penalization for applying later in the application process. So something to keep in mind here is these dates need to fall in between your accept applications date and the application deadline. This late fee does not work past the application deadline. So if you're trying to collect a late fee or someone is late to applying to the show, there is a completely different process for that. The late fee will not work on that. And you can reach out to us and we can talk you through that process and what your options are. One of the big things that big mistakes that are made as well, later on down the road, they realize that they publish their event and they're like, well, I forgot to activate the product. So people are calling us and emailing us, wondering why they can't purchase a booth, etc. So just go through and activate everything when you're ready to publish. This is the number one place. If you guys reach out to us and it's like, oh, we have an artist that's saying they can't see a booth, I go to the product editor first. I check and make sure that the product is active. That's the number one place where there's error. So on your end, you can always check your products. And let's say if you sell out of something and you want to just pull it off like a corner booth, and you're tired of hearing about, do you have any corner booths available? We see it for sale on the ZAPP shop, even though you guys have sold all the way up to your quantity. Just pull it off. You can deactivate that product. That'll help. Last little cool feature here, the override purchase deadline. So this is where those late purchases matter. Up until that accept invitation and purchase date, everything will be active here. After that date, the ZAPP shop essentially will close down. If you want to keep products up for purchase, just hit the override purchase deadline button under the product title. And essentially what it'll do is allow artists to buy that product up until the day of the event. So if you wanted to have someone come in late, sneak an application in or whatever, and you want them to apply, you can override the purchase deadline for a day or two, let them purchase what they need to, and then just turn that back off. It's a great way to get those applications in at a later time. With that being said, we are at tab number 4. So that means that we have filled out everything on this in the event editor, and we're ready to publish. So what we'll do, there's a few options that you have. First one, and we would love for you guys to do, this is a relatively new feature, is hit the publish button at the top of the page under the event status. You can hover over it and click that if everything has been filled out correctly. Now, if it doesn't pop up and you're wondering why, the biggest mistake that's made there on the event information tab down here, the accept applications day is in the past. Just move that app date up to the current day that you are looking at the actual event on ZAPP. And essentially what you can do is hit that publish button. And then what that does is send us an email. And then essentially after you get that, we get that email, we look your event over, we make sure everything's in good shape, check your image size for your logo, etc. Check your conditional logic on your questions if you ask for that. And then we will send you an email back saying your event's been published. So that is the first part of our training. So now we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit, and we are going to talk a bit about some tips and tricks, some functionalities of the site. What statuses mean what? So this is where after you've published your application, a lot of this information is going to be helpful. So the event administration page is pretty simple until you start opening up and clicking on these numbers next to the statuses, and then you get a nice little table here down at the bottom. So first and foremost, I'm going to go over applications by status. What do these statuses mean? Now, before you guys break out your pens and pencils, etc., all this stuff is listed in the Help Center here under Managing Artist Applications. So you can recap what I'm talking about here today if you need to, and it is listed. And also to kind of backtrack just for a split second, building your application, this is what I just walked through. And imagine that we've got pictures, we've got definitions, we've got all that stuff listed out there for you. So it is available. You can reference this stuff at any time. The Help Center is there for you guys. So awaiting payment by check. This one's pretty self-explanatory. If I submit an application and I want to pay by check, I say in the payment processor that I'm paying by check, it'll automatically throw my application in the status of awaiting payment by check. So what that means is they will be pending. So you can come in here, and once you receive that check, you can change that to received. And essentially, once you move that check to received, you can also change their status here back to where they need to go. Most of the time, that will land back in the received status, which is different. The received status. This is the initial place an application is going to land when an artist submits it. It means they've agreed to your legal agreement, they have filled out all the questions on your application, submitted the images, and paid the application fee, and submitted that application. It's going to land in the received status. Think of this as your unread inbox for your email address. These are your applications that are brand new. With that being said, if you think about the reviewed, you could think about this as your read email inbox. So any application received, let's say we want to take a look at Bennett's app, look through it. Okay, this is great, good to go. I'm going to move him to reviewed just to know that we've looked at this. It's got given a thumbs up that everything is up to par for us for right now, and we can move on. A lot of events will do this when they're collecting apps to go through things. So yeah, the reviewed status is not a requirement. You don't have to move them there. It's just a little car park off to the side for apps if you need it. The incomplete status. So the incomplete status is essentially if an artist submits an app, they got through all the process. Let's say their images are really low resolution, and you're like, I don't think this is going to be good enough for our jury process, or maybe something's upside down, or an artist says, oops, I totally submitted an application. I need to actually submit a different image. Do you guys mind if I make a change? Put them in the incomplete status, send them an email. They can go on their side of things, update the application, and resubmit that. Keep that same idea with the exception status. The exception status, the difference is this is after the application deadline is passed. So once the application deadline is passed, something like that happens where they need to make a change to an application, you can throw them in the exception status. So the best way to differentiate: before application deadline, after the application deadline. The withdrawn status. So big question here is, can artists put themselves in withdrawn? No, they have to reach out to you guys, and then you guys can move them to the withdrawn status. So an artist cannot, essentially, they can withdraw from the event if they want to by not responding, but to get put into this status, you have to move them there. When they're in the withdrawn status, they can't make any purchases, they can't move forward the application. That's the end of the road for that app. The other status, this is a real like incognito status, nothing changes. So something to keep in mind with these statuses, they do update on the artist's application. The other status does not. So they will not know they're in the other status. This is kind of something behind the scenes you can use. It will show as received on the artist side of things, but it's a great way to set an application out to the side. You know, hey, look, hey, Tim, can you check out Joanne's application? How do you feel about the resolution of her images? So I can log into my account, find this person in the other status, take a look, and like say, oh, yes or no, and then move them where they need to go. So it's a great little like side place to put them without having to worry about the application status updating for the artist. Exempt from jury status. These are those award winners. These are the folks that are not going to be going through the jury process. This is also the first initial place that anybody can make a purchase for a booth or anything beyond the application fee. So I'll reiterate that again. Up until here in the statuses, the only thing someone can purchase is going to be that jury fee or application fee that you guys have listed for your show. Moving down after this, everything else, they will start being able to make purchases. Jury process is over with, and you've moved all your applications into invited, not invited, in the wait list. They will land in here. The invited status is just that. They need to go in on their end and actually click the green accept or reject invitation button on the application in order to move to the accepted status. So these are the folks you're inviting to your show. The waitlist status. So these are the folks you're throwing on the wait list. Maybe you're full on something, but you're like, these people were great. We want to keep them on just in case we get a cancellation or something. I'm going to put these folks on the wait list. They can't do anything on the wait list. They're kind of on standby until you guys reach out to them or make a move on their application. The not invited status. These are the folks that did not get or make the cut through the jury process. These are the ones that are not attending the event. This is the end of the road for them. So yeah, they'll get an email from you guys after the jury process. They can't make any other purchases. Just kind of like in the withdrawn status, there's not much more they can do on their end. After someone has accepted the invitation to the show, they land in the accepted status. This is going to be the main place where most of your artists are going to be starting to purchase those booth spaces or tents, things like that, to attend the show, those booth type products that we were talking about in the product shop. If they decline the invitation, they'll land in the decline status. That's the end of the road for them as well. And then finally, after purchasing a booth type product, or if you move them there, they go to the confirmed status. Just to make a quick recap of like how you kind of want an application to go with your show. I apply to your event, I pay the application fee, I land in the receive status. I go through the jury process from the receive status, and I'm good to go, so I go into the invited status. You guys shoot me an email, I go and get the email, I accept my invitation, I move to the accepted status. Once I'm in the accepted status, I make a booth purchase, and then finally the system will move me to the confirmed status, and that's where you want the people or all of your applications and applicants to land before your event starts. The search applications box here actually will search all of these applications by status. It's pretty nice, so you can just find someone by their name, business studio name, application ID. You can look for a specific category here or statuses if you'd like. Also, these numbers next to the statuses are clickable, so you can click those and see those folks. Quick touch on the table down here. This is your event management table. These are where all your artists will be listed under statuses and things. Cool features, if you click the table editor, you can display a max of 8 fields at a time. So you can uncheck and recheck things if you would like. Add up to 8. You can have as little as 1. And then all you got to do is hit the save button and it will update that table for you. You can change artists one at a time here if you need to make a status change. You also can mass move. So move all the invited applications to a specific status. So you can mass move everything if you need to as well. It's a great time saver instead of going and doing this one by one. If you click the ID number, this is the so-called the application number here on the left-hand side. Like we saw earlier, if you click this, it'll pull up their actual application. As you can see, there are all the questions that this person answered. There are all the images that were submitted, including that booth shot, any payments made to the show, and also emails that were sent. So that's a nice little accountability feature. So if you guys are sending out emails, someone says, I didn't get it, you can check on their application and say, oh, well, actually on November 4th at 12:16, it looks like it landed in your inbox. I would check your spam folder, etc. So it's a great little place. And you can also click this link and it'll show you what that email looked like. So you can see the actual email, the body. Up at the top up here, there are 3 little internal organizational features that we have on apps. So think of like sticky notes back in the day on paper apps and stuff like that. So you can flag an application by clicking this if you need to. There's not a reason. It doesn't show up for the artist. This is an internal thing. So you can flag this application for any reason you guys want to set for. You can do that. You can create tags here. So like you see, email or invited, etc. You can create tags up to 3 per application. And you also can add internal comments. So I can add Julia, I can put comments on her application if I would like to. Once again, just to reiterate, these do not show up for the artists. These are internal. This is stuff for you guys to use on your end for organization. So go back to the events management table. I got one more thing to touch on. This is a big one. So let's say I need to pull a report, some Excel spreadsheets, get some data, get some information about my artists. You can go down to the bottom here and it will automatically populate as a CSV file. It's a comma separated value file. I don't recommend pulling these reports. I always recommend pulling an Excel SX style report. CSV, if you have commas in any of the information on the names or where somebody lives, etc., essentially what's going to happen is it's going to create a new column on that spreadsheet that you're going to be pulling, and it's going to make things look wonky. So avoid CSVs. I'm an Excel SX guy myself. It's a lot easier and things are relatively more stable that way. So you got a contact report. So if I need to get all the contact information that we were talking about from the application that comes from the artist profile, I can click that and that'll give me a spreadsheet of every person, email, name, phone number, etc. And I can pull that up. If I click the answers report, I'm going to get a spreadsheet of all the answers I asked on my application and each artist and what they said for each answer, which is awesome. I can get a PDF report. This one's really easy. It just pulls a stack of every application listed on the table shown, and it's just a PDF stack of all those apps. So if you want to get some paper copies of those, you can. And then finally, that slideshow feature. So if I want to see what these folks' applications look like, I can go in here and click this slideshow, and essentially it'll show you those 5 images in a row or that 1 image at a time, PowerPoint style, and you just go through those applications. You can look at the images. Another big feature, we're going to talk about communication really quick. Event communication. So this one here, this is basically your mass emailing tool. Do I need to send a bunch of emails out at once? This is where you do it. Let's say I need to send invitations to my folks in the invited status. I can select that status, hit select, and then compose that email, create a reply to address, etc., and send that email out to those folks. Now, cool thing here, add merge data. This is relatively new. Let's say I've assigned those booth numbers to my confirmed artists and I want to send out that email to those. I don't have to do 100 emails to 100 different people with 100 different numbers. I can just merge the data from the table we were just looking at and send one email out and it'll do all the work for me. So it's a mail merge option. We are going to touch on coupons now. You need to create discounts, events, coupons, and you'll come to this page. You can create a coupon, internal name, discount, so $sign or percent. How much of a discount are we giving these people? Maximum uses, so you can create a maximum use for those coupons, create a coupon code. This was a big part here. We make sure that the coupon codes are no longer than 10 characters and cannot include spaces or symbols. It just gets kind of funky if they're too long, and it's easier for the artist to type in if it's a short and easy code. So keep it sweet, short and sweet. It's free, 2020 is great, etc. Then you have your start and end date for the coupons here. So what day is it going to start? What day is it going to end? I can also disable that coupon at any time if I need to. And then this corresponds directly with our product shop. What do we list here, and what do you want that discount to apply to? And you'll click those check marks next to that coupon, and you're good to go. With that being said, the only thing you'll share with the artist is the code, and they'll use it. Nice thing, as you can see, is you will be able to track how many coupons have been used, etc. So if it's a single-use coupon, this will let you know if that coupon's been redeemed or not. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the Artist tab. The Artist tab here, essentially, this is where you can search artists who apply to your past or current events. So if you have a bunch of events on ZAPP, you need to find one specific person, you can type their name in or an email address and look at their history with you guys. This is not their history on ZAPP with all of the events they've attended to, it's just specifically with you. In the Reports tab, we have our income breakdown here. So this is the money questions. This is where a lot of things arise at the first of the month. What's ZAPP doing with our cash? How much money do we have right now? How much are we owed? Can we process this refund? Do we have enough money for these folks to get their money back? Easy. So you can make a date range. So let's say we want to pull a month report. I'm not sure exactly how much cash is on this event. So I'm going to pull a quote unquote month report here just to see if we can get some actual transactions that happened. But you can pull for those dates. You can actually filter or include all data or exclude selected filters. That'll just kind of open up these check boxes down here. So if you want to just check your refunds for a month, you can, or for the year. You'll select your event and you hit run report, and it will give you a table itemized of everything that people have purchased through that specific time span. Down at the bottom, cool thing, you'll see pending checks that haven't been received yet, any checks that have been received, etc. How much have you collected? How much have you guys done in credit card fees? And then the total amount of all these here to the right. This is a great way to pull that report every month. If you get the remittance statement via email, you can pull that remittance statement report up side by side with your income breakdown report and just double check and make sure that you guys are getting the correct amount of funds. If you have any questions about that stuff, you can totally email us at ZAPPhelp@westaff.org, and we'll be happy to walk you through it or help you out. And with that being said, we're going to loop around to the very end of this. I hope you guys have had a good time. We're going to hit the ticket, and this is where you can reach out to the ZAPP team directly. From your perspective, you can submit a ticket to us. We have a pretty good response time right now. In the busy season, we try to keep it up to at least about 45 minutes to an hour before we respond to you guys. If things are slow, we'll probably get back a little bit faster. But in peak season, sometimes things can get a little busy, and so it takes a little longer to get to you. Feel free to give us a call as well. So 2 email addresses. One thing that we ask, sometimes this happens, administrators will forward artists' questions to the ZAPP Help inbox. We have specific team, the customer service team, that is available for the artists. And we like to keep these two separated. So myself, I'm in the ZAPP Help inbox. I'm available for you guys as the administrators. And then we also will differentiate that, send the artists to the artist team so they are available for them. And so there's not any kind of confusion. So that way, if there's only, I think, 3 or 4 of us behind this email address, we want to make sure we're available for you guys at any time. So just to kind of lay that out, that's ZAPPhelp@westaff.org. That's your admin stuff. And then we have contact ZAPP@westaff.org. And that's your artist stuff. So any artist questions that come to you guys, you can forward those emails to contact@ZAPP@westaff.org or give them this email address. They can email us at our customer experience team, and they can take care of the artist stuff. Part of the reason you guys are with us essentially is, for us to take care of some of those questions. So yeah, that's a great tool to have. It's essentially, you guys can see what we're saying with this. We need to be available for you guys as administrators, and then we have an artist team that needs to be available for the artist stuff. So if you ask a question, please submit a ticket. It'll automatically go to ZAPPhelp@westaff.org.